Welcome back, folks. As you can tell, I'm in one of my favorite spots here, and if you have a look around you, I got a lot on the go. I don't know about you guys, but if you got a space to work, you tend to collect projects, and unfortunately for me, I got a lot of those right now, and I'm trying to get some of them completed. Now, one of those projects I'm going to show you today is this guy right here. Any guesses? No? Okay. That's a range hood. So, as you saw in some of my other videos, I mentioned that I am working on my kitchen in my home. And that job has turned out to be a long process. Some of it is my fault, some is not. I'm waiting on some utilities to get installed, and various other people who are doing some of the professional labor for me. Labor, I mean skilled labor. They're doing some of the electrical, plumbing, and all that type of thing. And so waiting on that is turning into sort of a negative, but somewhat of a positive for me, because it gives me a bit of time to get out in the shop, which I don't really need any excuse to get out here for, but in any case, gives me an excuse to get out here and get this project underway. So that's what we're up against today. Now, what I've done up until this point is basically laid out in my kitchen where all my cabinets are going to go, and those are store-bought cabinets. I don't really have time to build them all. Nor do I have the space, judging by what's around me here. But anywho, I bought the cabinets and I'm going to do a custom range hood. I've done this before and I'm quite skilled, at least in my opinion, with the tools, and so I'll build a nice custom range hood. What I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to repurpose some material I have from a project from a while back, and some of that material is going to use, or some of that extra material I'm going to use, is this stuff right here. This is tongue and groove. This is actually flooring. This is hemlock. What's unique about this is it was overflow from a project I had years ago. I saved it, and it's basically just sat around for a time like today. I'm looking for a very rustic look for my range hood, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some of the flooring, and I'm going to cut the tongue and the groove off and use what's left, because it has a really unique characteristic. This stuff has been treated, not chemically, but mechanically, with a circle sawn effect. You guys can see the circle sawn effect here. Let's see if I can balance out with my leg right there. That's not from being sawn with an actual circular saw, although it may have been, I don't know. But this is an effect they add to the wood, as is what they call wire brushing. So they have a piece of equipment where I bought this that they actually run a very coarse wire, sort of a drum over it, and it sort of gouges and really brings out the characteristic of this wood. And if we get up a bit closer here, you guys can really get a good look at that there. You can see the wire brush effect. So kind of unique, because the entire piece is not wire brushed, just sections of it. So like on this side, it's nice and smooth. This side, it's a bit rough. And if you make your way up here, although it's kind of hard to see until you get the stain and the clear coat on, the circle sawn effect is quite unique as well. So that's a lot to take in. This is extra material. As you've seen around here, I like to be resourceful. This is my attempt at reusing some material to make a range hood. That's my plan over there. Hopefully, don't ever do that with hemlock. This stuff will give you a sliver. Anyways, this is my plan as I showed you. I always make a plan as well as pretty much a cut list before I get out in the shop, so that I'm not standing here sort of looking off into space and imagining what it should look like and guessing on dimensions. I go inside, I take dimensions, I put it down into a plan. As you can see here, I have a variety of different measurements on here, all the way down to the second page, where I wrote out in words little tidbits of information that I have to remember. As an example, distance from the stove surface to the range hood. And I write down the dimensions. So just some small things that I like to do before I get out here, so I can maximize my time out here. And I don't want to make any errors. This stuff, when I bought it, although it's, old now, this stuff, when I bought it, wasn't cheap. I don't want to waste it. It's nice material. Anyways, that's it. Let's get down to work. Thanks for being here. All right, guys. Well, I got a little bit ahead of you guys, just so you can, see the end product eventually. If I start from scratch and I'm doing all this layout and that, you're probably never going to see it built, well, at least not in one episode. What you're seeing in front of you is essentially the 2 plywood sides. This will make up the the basic frame of the range hood. So you guys can see it's going to be something like that. If you want a side profile, there you go. And in this cutout here, there'll be a piece of plywood, and further down there'll be another piece of plywood. And you guys can see on my right there, I've got all those pieces numbered. So you can see these pieces are numbered. Cut my finger there. The pieces are numbered and they correspond to exactly where they're gonna go. So as you can imagine, if I were to stand this piece back up, that piece, number 6, is gonna mount something like that. Then you're gonna have a series of other pieces up here and along the back. And then what's gonna happen is then we're gonna use that hemlock, and that's gonna go over top of it and you know, basically finish off the sides with it as well. And that'll be that. Now, before I get any further, it's important to note that if we're having a look at the range hood, and here's the sketch I drew here, from the right side, when looking at the range hood, there's gonna be a vent that comes in. That vent will provide the ventilation for the hood. So it's gonna come in basically this way, like so, and enter that way. And then once it's inside, it does the 90-degree and goes down over top of the stove. But I have to make a cutout in the right-hand side in order to fit the pipe. It's a 6-inch HVAC pipe. I've done some measurements inside my place, and so I have to transfer these over to my board, and then we'll cut them out, and then we can finish assembling that and then look at putting the actual boards on it. So first and foremost, wall side is the back side, 5 inches. It's not going to be too difficult here. The hardest part is actually getting the accurate measurements, because what's really sad is when you get the measurements wrong, you do all the work and it doesn't fit. 5 inches from the wall to the first cut, or at least the start of the cut, 12 inches to the end of the cut. Start, end, that's going to be cut out. We're going down from the top edge, which will rest on the ceiling, 6.5 inches. Now in this case, it's not overly critical, but if it was overly critical, I'd be using a square, probably a smaller one, and setting it along the top edge and then measuring down 6.5 and scribing my line. In this case, because I have it on here, I'll just show you what I'd do. I'd make sure to get a nice square line here, because why not make it as good as you can make it, right? Okay, and then you simply connect it. Bingo bango, cut her out, and that'll be that. And we're gonna use a circular saw to make the cut right there. And just a little tip for you guys, if you wanted to get the depth correct, because you don't need to go too far down, just loosen off your, holy smokes, my lever there was nice and tight, but loosen it off and basically just flatten the saw, or not flatten, lower the saw rather, until it touches a hard surface like my workbench. Then you can lock it into place. And now you know the blade is only going to stick down as far as the wood, or as thick as the wood is. Just do that for safety. I don't like to leave the whole blade exposed if we don't need it to be. And this will be a bit of a plunge cut here, and we'll finish up the final part of the cut with a handsaw. Alright, you probably could have gone through, continued if you want. I like the look of it being clean cut like that. Personal preference. And I guess we better finish up the other cuts. You could also use a table saw for these. I have the circular saw handy and it's just rough, so it's not overly critical at this point. Let's see here. Throw something on the other side. Or what am I doing? Let's do it like this. Okay, look at all this mess over here I gotta clean up. Don't laugh. I know you guys have a shop if you do, and it's probably just as bad. Or maybe it's not, and you guys are... and you guys are more organized than me. I'm pretty organized, but my shop is sort of the catch-all. And the reason that's so hard to pass through the wood, you guys can see there, the saw has seen better days, but that's how it goes, right? And I'll just clean that up with the chisel and then let's assemble. It's kind of hard to clean it up perfectly since it's really, really old plywood. And let's keep in mind this is just rough. We're going to have this covered with some of that hemlock, and so just a basic opening like that will be sufficient. Okay, let's label it, or what am I talking about? Let's line it up. Can't talk today. Let's line it up number to number and get her assembled. So, numero uno. Bingo. See how I have it nice and flush there. Okay, how am I going to install this? Well, screws and glue. Dusty. Okay, let's grab a handful of these. I don't know if I showed you guys this. This is my makeshift hardware cabinet. I got sick of having hardware in all these jars one day, and so I made a nice cabinet. And the best stuff going, Gorilla Glue. And I think we're ready. Looking at it and say, gee, that's going to stick out a ways, and it is. And the reason is I wanted to stick out slightly wider than the cabinets, which are 15 inches. And so all you're really going to see when you look at it from the side, you're going to follow along the edge of the cabinet with your eye, and you're going to see basically that much of the range hood on the side, and then obviously the front, which we're about to cover. So let's cover it with some of that hemlock and see how it goes. for paint. I don't want to put paint on this because, as you can see, it's got some nice texture to it and I want to show off that nice texture. So I'm down to stain and I'm down to a whitewash option. Now whitewash might look real nice because you'll still see all the grain in the wood. Stain, same thing. If you guys have any comments or tips or anything you think I could add to this to make it that much better, please put it down below. And take note of one thing here. These little pieces are going to be the side trim pieces, so the continuation of this, this, and this around the side. The reason I haven't nailed these off yet is you have to remember the cabinet is going to stick out. So the cabinets on either side is going to stick out 15 inches. This is about 19 inches. So you're only going to see about that much of the range hood. If you can imagine here, you're only going to see about that much of the range hood right there. So I didn't attach these pieces because I don't know exactly what the distance is going to be, and I want to make sure I have a nice tight fit right to the cabinet. So I'll end up putting these pieces on, scribing them and submitting them, or not submitting them, attaching them once it's actually butted up tight against the cabinet. So I got them all cut. That's what that's for. That's why you don't see anything there. Anyways, that's it for me here today. Appreciate all you guys watching. Make sure you give me your 2 cents down below. I think this turned out to be pretty well an easy project considering I had all the materials on hand. So thanks again, folks, and I look forward to seeing you next time. And one last thing, guys, if you come back next time, I'll be sure to show you exactly how I fit my piece of plywood in here to accept my fan. That's going to be on the next episode. Thanks for watching. See you then.